this is this analysis country by country, so you can look at your own country. I'm sure we will share the PowerPoint presentation, so I won't comment country by country, obviously. And the big difference of Europe compared to Asia, for example, is that most of the IT workforce is in IT-using sectors. So the IT sector, purely speaking, is gathering less than 45% of the workforce. In Asia, it's the other way around. So most of the people are in the IT sector, much less in the IT-using sectors. In the US, it's more balanced because they have a strong IT industry. So it means here in Europe, our strength is in transforming, adapting mature technologies, mature industries to become digital. This is why this notion of having skills in IT and knowledge and skills in a given sector are particularly important, because we are not just discussing about people who have pure IT knowledge. This knowledge needs to be applied in a given sector. So we have a major issue also still in Europe, is the number of women, and here I think we need to be ashamed. It's not just Europe, I would say, it's also the US and Japan also have a similar problem. Actually, in the 80s, there were, as a percentage, more women in the IT workforce than these days. So this is why we need to continue working on this, and again, better communicating, especially to young girls when they are in the schools. So to summarize the reason why we need to work on that, so the still very poor public perception of IT education, job and career. As I was saying, I mean, if there is a very popular article about IT doesn't matter, all the jobs will go to India, I mean, this catch the eyes, and we still have to fight against that. So we need to improve the public perception. We need to increase the number of people entering IT education and careers, and we need to fight, of course, this big threat of project failure and, of course, a security threat. So we need to further mature this industry and to build on different building blocks. So we were talking about the e-compliance framework. The e-compliance framework is one of the pillars, but there are other pillars: body of knowledge, standards for education and training, certification, ethic and conduct. So it is clear that something must be done. But the curse, I would say, for this kind of statement is that they have been made many times. And the problem is that people react, or the large number of people react once you have either a big scandal or a big catastrophe. So I will continue to preach for that, and we need to continue to work and mobilize efforts and better communicate. But unfortunately, unless there is a big, again, catastrophe, a big scandal, it's still very much difficult to move people, because they have to change the way they do things. They need to reaffect funding from certain type of program to new one. I mean, this transition is painful, so we have to realize that. It's not just that people are passive or that they are resisting. It's just that doing it is extremely painful, because it transforms, it changes the life of many individuals. So these are the four blocks on which work needs to progress now, not in parallel, but in a closely synergetic and integrated way. And this is the instrument that we want to use to make it happen. So we don't want to develop this somewhere in the corridors or of the Berlaymont. This is something where stakeholders, people from industry, people from academia, people from trade unions, they need to come together. They need to work on maturing these standards through a process of consultation, consensus building, and a continuous process. We are ready to support this. We have supported this for, I would say, almost 15 years right now, on different type of activities, because what you were talking about, the e-governance framework, the so-called version 3.0, which was a kind of internal code that people were using, actually the first version of the standards has been adopted in 2016. And there is ongoing work to update, to release a new version of the standards by 2019. I don't talk that much about that because you have the chair, the vice chair of this technical committee who are in the audience. So, and we want to support them also working on the different other elements of this framework and body of knowledge, curricular guidance, profile certification, etc. So I very much invite you to liaise with them and to see how also at national level efforts can be done to strengthen the contribution to this work. Here I just want to highlight the fact that there exist reports that describe how this effort should be channeled and worked over for the future. So there's this report towards the European Framework for IT Professionalism, which had been released in 2017. So I'm referring to a conference that took place under the Maltese presidency of the European Union. And on the 15th of November, there will be in Brussels a new conference to discuss about progress on these issues. And Niels is just there. So Niels, raise the hand.
Good morning.
So if you have any questions, he's helping us to organize this event. And here you can click on the link and register. Okay, so the website of the ECF also, I very much encourage you to look at it. The main conclusion, so growing number of vacancies in higher skills area. But the things keep changing all the time. The skills mix and the type of job keep changing all the time. The new jobs, we can't forecast all of them. They will have to be created. But if we have a solid basis of knowledge, experience and expertise, it's much easier because we can create them than rather passively follow and then react when we see that nobody is able to supply them. As I was saying, the supply is improving, but it is mostly via lateral entries. It's good, it's better than nothing, but it's far from being the kind of quality of supply that we expect. The demographic change requires stronger reliance on retraining and professional education because people will stay. Not only because it's very difficult to find new people to replace them, but also because of the pressure on pension system. I don't know when these people will retire. Quality assurance also is important. It's one thing to say that you are an expert, but this has to be proven. And by the way, now we see more and more artificial intelligence tools to filter and to test people for recruitment. People are not just maybe in the old time looking at the diploma and saying, well, you have this diploma, then you get 5% increase or whatsoever, or you pay more. No, I mean, you have the diploma, okay, so it just enter you into the room where the tests are taking place, or maybe the tests are taking place online. So people now is extremely, the way of recruiting people is changing. It's very much based on test-based and people be able to meet extremely challenging situation and reflect about the way Google and many others are organizing their recruitment. So this level of high-level skills is very important for professionals. Finally, because of this life of the need of people coming from lateral entries, plus the need to continuously upgrade the skills, this issue of certification is important. We cannot live only formal education and training to do this. This must be a partnership with industry and especially those IT vendors who are providing training and certification. But we must make sure that the quality is there, that as I was saying, is not someone who decides to make a profitable business to just to give bad courses and kind of certificate that is of no quality. So here, this is why we need to have a dialogue with IT vendors to really make sure that we have nice and proper way of validating certification and competencies. I want also to tell you about briefly about ongoing activities and also the future. So as you know, the New Skills Agenda for Europe, there are two important elements. One is this Digital Skills and Job Coalition, which is very much stemming of previous effort on the e-skills, especially skills for job campaign, and she knows very well, she was very active on that. And also the blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills. So briefly on the Digital Skills and Job Coalition, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know that you are following this very closely. Over 400 members, more than 102 pledges, millions of people have got training. I don't know if it's 7 or 8.
2 or 3.
Oh, sorry. So I'm a little bit feeding the multitude, so it's a little bit less. Okay, but millions definitely. So in less than 2 years, so it's a good thing. You can see that at the bottom here, you have pledges which have been made specifically in the area of IT professionals. You have 23 coalitions. At the time we finished the e-skills for job campaign, there were 13 coalitions, something like that. So it's booming. I was even challenged on Tuesday by Sweden because I made a presentation to the COSME committee for a new action that we want to support, and they said, how comes? I mean, we did not know that Sweden had a coalition. Actually, yes, the coalition was launched in May, so it's relatively recent. So I could provide the information. So the Digital Skills and Job Coalition will run again up to 2020, and it's a very important instrument. And the action that we have proposed and we have discussed with the committee last Tuesday is aiming also to mobilize the coalition and the colleagues from DG Connect to work on further awareness and communication activities. Because the other important thing that Pavel was talking about is this blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills, a new strategic approach to cooperate on skills. And here there is a link, close link between the policy and the policy DGs with those who have the instruments and the funding for these blueprint pilots. So for the pilots which have been launched, you have Erasmus Plus that has been mobilized, the lot 3 that Pavel was describing, and I very much again encourage you to look about this Erasmus Plus. It's an excellent tool, and the good news is that there will be a new Erasmus Plus. There will be a new European Social Fund, and these are extremely powerful tools to fund projects, to provide also opportunity for training, especially with DSF. So we have 4 waves. There will be 4 waves of selection of sectors and pilot implementation. And what we want to ensure is that there is a rollout at national and regional level. So these are the sectors which have been selected. And here I want to say that we are extremely critical. We want to make sure that this is a success. So this is why in the first wave where you see defense was not funded, not ready in 2017 because they were not ready. So we deemed that they were not ready enough. So there is a ongoing project that is working, and what we expect, and we will not repeat it, that it will be part of the third wave. Now in the second wave, we had again proposed 6 sectors. 2 of the sectors which are in black will not fly this time. Paper industry and green technology and renewable, just because we did not get sufficient quality proposal. And again, keep in mind that we want to fund one proposal for this. So it's not just, just fund and see what's happening. No, it's something where we want to make sure that this is something which is scalable and which is politically visible and a success. For the third wave, it will be published at the end of October. I will not break a big secret by saying that, well, defense will be on board, microelectronics, energy sector will come back, and also the bioeconomy. Which means that other DGs are joining. So DG Research, DG Move, DG MAR was already there, DG Agriculture, DG Connect, etc. So it's very good news, because one of the problems for those of you who have experimented a little bit working with the Commission and with public authorities is the departments are working in silos, and here we are breaking the silos. So here you have the different websites where you can see further information about what's going on. So the Digital Skills Coalition, the Skills for Industry, Blueprints of Sectoral Cooperation and Skills, and the Digital Competence and Anti-Professionalism. I just brought this picture because I knew that Mary will be in the room. It was an excellent opportunity, because it was when the National Coalition in Ireland was launched, and it was a special occasion. It was the IT Professional Day in Ireland. And that's precisely the kind of thing that we would like to fund in the future. So the reception by the COSP committee was extremely positive, so I hope this will fly. But here I can't tell much more at this stage, but I'm quite sure that before the end of the year we can disseminate information about this new action, new communication action for the next 3 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.